So today we have as our guest my good old friend Biju Dominic. So Biju Dominic is the chief evangelist at Fractal Analytics, how understanding the human mind can make AI smarter.
I realized even trying to understand people's behavior about something like toothpaste itself is so tough. While being in the advertising world, that whatever techniques that we were trying, the market research techniques that we were trying to understand consumer behavior wasn't really working. We said we need to move away from the psychology theories that we were using to understand human behavior to the world of cognitive neuroscience. We are predominantly our processes
Always.
are non-conscious.
So we don't know why we behave the way we behave.
Exactly. Now, how do I get into someone's bedroom? Which is a context in which a woman will actually speak about something that is deeply personal.
Is the industry required to take ethical approval before they do work on human subjects?
No. What are the factors that are really leading to it? So initially people used to say, oh, this poverty. We said poverty exists in a lot of other villages and other states in this country. So the moment such things happen, that information is sort of like a, sunlight falling into a dark room.
Beautiful.
When you say traditional methodology, you have to be careful because ethnography was pure observations. But today, when we go into observations around there, we observe a lot of this neuroscientific perspective to it.
Wow.
How do we use understanding of the working of the brain to understand the problem and also to develop extremely effective interventions? The brain is the most energy optimizing machine in the world. That paradigm that we need a lot of information and I have lots of time to take a decision is fundamentally flawed. Now, when the context duration itself is only 5 seconds, how can you even have a 5-second commercial out there?
So welcome to the second episode of Doing Good with Paromita. I'm Paromita Goswami, Professor of Marketing and Social Innovation at Shivnadar Institution of Eminence, Delhi NCR. So today we have as our guest my good old friend Biju Dominic. We go back a long way. I think 2008 was it that I first met you?
Yeah, it could be around that time. That's true.
Yes. So I used to teach at Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar at that time, and Biju happens to be a alum. And I was trying to do something innovative about the teaching there. And Lata ji at that time, Professor Lata Ravindran, she had suggested that you must get in touch with Biju. So Biju Dominic is the chief evangelist at Fractal Analytics and one of India's foremost thinkers on human behavior change with over 36 years of experience spanning advertising, neuroscience, and AI. He co founded Fine and Mile Consulting, where he pioneered the practice of behavior architecture, blending cognitive neuroscience and behavioral economics to solve real world problems. That is something that I'm really interested in understanding. Today at Fractal, he works at the cutting edge of human and machine intelligence, exploring how understanding the human mind can make AI smarter. He also has just published this book, this wonderful book, Micro-Stimuli. Once I came to know about this book, I almost read it like, I read Rebecca at one point. Because, when I was reading Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier, I couldn't put down the book. I mean, it was like that. I mean, I had to read the whole thing and almost like sleepless night and then getting to, because there are such important, fascinating things that you talk about in the book. And in this podcast, I'm primarily focusing on what do practitioners do which affect the people on planet in a good way. And you have done so much of wonderful, beautiful work. I can't wait to hear more about that. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you is, you talk about, for example, it's oral contraceptives. You talk about oral contraceptives in your book and how it is difficult to get insights about oral contraceptive usage given the hush-hush society that we live in. So in page 120 of your book, you discuss that and how you were trying to get insights about contraceptive usage. Would you like to tell us about what the issue was and how you addressed it?
Yeah, before I really go to oral contraceptives, as you said, it's a tough this to understand. I realized even trying to understand people's behavior about something like toothpaste itself is so tough.
Yes, totally.
And it's not just the toughness part of it. It's also I realized in the first part of my career, while being in the advertising world, that whatever techniques that we were trying, the market research techniques that we were trying to understand consumer behavior, wasn't really working.
Okay.
As I said, even if I ask a housewife, why did she buy the toothpaste that she bought? She gives me a lot of reasons. But we knew right in the beginning, initially we thought, oh, those are all truths. And we made a lot of commercials and spent a lot of crores of rupees of our clients in it. But later we realized that isn't really giving the results, which is things were not changing. And that's why I sort of walked out of the advertising industry and I
You
started
started your career as in an agency,
in
right?
an agency. I started
Okay.
with then called the HTA, then I moved to Lintas, and then I moved to Mudra Communications. 17 years I spent
In the advertising
in the
industry. Till
advertising.
you realize that certain things are not working.
Is not
Yeah,
working.
yeah.
And one of the things I realized, which is the problem, is that the very theories that of human behavior that we were sort of using, which is mostly the psychology theories, weren't working. And
Okay.
that is where I co-founded Final Mile Consulting in 2007.
Right.
And we said we need to move away from the psychology theories that we were using to understand human behavior to the world of cognitive neuroscience.
So how are the psychological theories, behavior and cognitive neuroscience different? What are the primary differences? If you can give me two differences.
One, I think the psychology theories assumes that man is fairly conscious of when he knows why he did what he did. Now, but cognitive neuroscience comes and says that of the 11 million bits of processing that we have, only 77 of them, only 77 of them work at a conscious level, which means we are predominantly our processes
Always.
are non-conscious.
So we don't know why we behave the way we behave.
Exactly. And that is
Right.
why the traditional research methodologies of focus groups and interview methods are just not the right way to do it.
Right. So tell me, like, we were talking about this contraceptive usage, and you said that even for toothpaste it is difficult, leave alone contraceptive usage, which is so much nuanced, and there are so many difficulties around talking about it. So, how did you start, and what did you start off thinking that okay, this possibly is the issue, how people behave, and what method did you use? What did you come to know about it?
Exactly. I think one of them that we realize, one is the science. Okay, how do we understand such the vast non-conscious of it? But one solution that we said is at least let's go to the context. Let's go to the context in which the behavior is happening. And I think we'll be much more, we'll get a much better feel of it. And that's where the problem happens. Now, how do I get into someone's bedroom?
Yes.
Because that's where the context of the oral contraceptives are.
Right.
So it was very easy to, criticize focus groups and say, no, that's not happening in context.
And in focus group, there are other people. Why would people talk about their own or
Exactly. Such a personal facet of own
thing, yes.
behavior. Why should I ever do it?
Yes.
So it was very easy to criticize. And when the client asked, hey, can you actually find a new way to research? We said, of course, we'll do it. But we came back to office and we realized, okay, now, how do we enter the bedroom?
Right.
Or someone said, oh, let's go and get our, people to, speak to our friends. So someone asked, oh, Biju, will your wife speak about what happened? And I said,
No.
no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think that is why we said, okay, now, which is a context in which a woman will actually speak about something that is deeply personal?
Yes.
And that is when someone said, maybe the only person she speaks to about her deeply personal facets would be her gynecologist.
Right.
Okay. And that led to a question, then, okay, can we create that context? So we created the context where we got two leading gynecologists of Mumbai and we said there's a free clinic, from the households, people can come in and, can have a free consultation. And obviously a lot of ladies came. a lot of consulting. Obviously, a lot of discussions were happening about their personal problems. And all that we did was we actually got one of our female colleagues to stand in the room. Now,
So observation.
Observation, listening in. Among all the things they were speaking about, some of the ladies did speak about, their worries about the contraceptive
Is it a
use.
one-to-one discussion with a gynecologist?
It's like any patient will come and speak to a gynecologist. That was the situation. She was standing as if like a trainee, gynecologist or someone
So
there.
it is a private setting.
It's a private setting.
It is a gynecologist's office.
Yeah.
And the patient is having a conversation, but a researcher is
Standing beside.
sitting there. Yeah.
But
Yes.
we knew we had crossed the lines
Ethical.
of ethics lines.
So I mean, we will go back to the first question, that is, how do you get the insight? But also, like, you went to the gynecologist office. So ethical approval, we know that for academics like us, we have to do it. Otherwise, journals will not publish it. So what about industry? Is the industry required to take ethical approval before they do work on human subjects?
No, I think industry in that way is much more lax about it. As long as you keep the respondent saying that there will be, it's a market research and, certain studies are being done there broadly. That's perfectly fine. We don't need the ethical committees that
that academics require.
We don't have.
So, but you realize that it was a problem. I mean, so therefore, the next part.
Yes. So we knew that we cannot and should not do this. And that is what led us to the development of something called ethnoLab, where we said, okay, now this was, is there a way we can get a bit more closer to the context? Assume in this case, gynecologist clinic. And that is when the team said, okay, we can create games and we can sort of gamify the whole situation. And we can create frames and context around the situation that we're looking at. So even when we using ethnoLab, we went even more personal. We went into studying, for example, the sexual behaviors of people.
So how did the gamification really work?
There are games like conundrum game, for example, which is there played in television, where you don't answer the question, but you have to sort of answer for the rest of the people sitting in the group. Say, for example, simple things like, what's the capital of Kenya? Now, you might know the answer, but you're expected not to speak about your answer. You're expected to speak on behalf of the people. What would be the answer? The rest of the group sitting there would do. And you have no really clue on who others are, but you have a fairly good idea of who they are, what their education, and most of them. But in the ethnoLab, what we did was we created a set of people who looked very similar to you.
So is it projection that you're
Exactly.
using? Okay.
Exactly. So what you do is you don't know them. At the same time, because it's a gamified situation, there are dummy questions that you ask, and suddenly the others are getting, say, $1 each or 100 rupees each for getting the right answers. Now you want to get the right answers. And what do? You start projecting your answers onto them. And then
so it is projection, but in a gamified situation.
In a gamified situation.
Right. So in this context, I'm just wondering, like, how did you come up with this idea of ethnoLab? I mean, yeah.
No, that came from a theoretical construct that the existing research methodologies are far away from the context in which the behavior is happening. Okay. We have to create the context as close to the real context as possible.
So for each project that you got, each one you had a separate game?
No, we had broadly 3 games. For example, whenever it was deeply personal, the conundrum game wherein you're sort of projecting yourself onto the others was actually used. There was another game called Game of Life. So mostly from financial services, it's all about doing an activity and you getting a return immediately. And the Game of Life is all about it. There is sort of a random choice that you do 1 to 6. You get the dice.
So these are games that you develop?
No, the Game of Life exists all there, but we twisted it. Yeah, the Game of Life tweaked it to, for example, the first time we did that was in the US for a credit card company. Mm-hmm. So all the situations and questions that we were asking were all related to the credit card business. Because we were very keen to know, how do we go about using a credit card?
Right.
So the situations were very, very credit card
So
related.
is this a proprietary instrument that you have? Or
Sort
can
of.
other researchers also use
You
it?
can, because we have now, even in my book, I've explained what it is. So we haven't, sort of, what we call, intellectual property. We're not sort of signing it on to ourselves, because overall, final mile and I think we're trying to talk about sharing
Okay.
most of these new approaches to human behavior. Because as you rightly said, yes, of course, some of these have commercial projects is what we use, but a lot of these have been used for what I call issues like girl trafficking.
Right. I will go
Reducing,
to girl trafficking.
yeah.
But before that, I wanted to understand for the contraceptive issue, what is it that you came to know that you could not have found out with traditional methods?
No, it's the concerns that she wouldn't have really told us.
Any such concern that you would be comfortable sharing without giving the client details?
Now, at this point in time, to be honest, I forget some of the key insights on the
Okay.
oral contraceptives per se, I forget.
Okay.
But some of the other things like girl trafficking and all,
Yeah,
I
girl
remember.
trafficking, another, I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it looked very interesting because I'm also from West Bengal and I
Mm.
know that in that geography, there is this huge problem of girl trafficking. And you mentioned that 78% of India's trafficking for commercial sex actually happens in Lakshmikantapur, which is in West Bengal. And I have a friend of mine who is like a younger sister. She actually works with an NGO in that geography and they try to see to it that girls are not trafficked.
Yeah.
Her name is Uma Chatterjee.
Okay.
She runs a NGO called Sanjog.
Mhm,
So tell me, how did you get to understand what the issues are? It was such a fascinating study that you did. I'm like really curious about what were the insights that you generated. And this is also a different group. I mean, these are not people who are using credit cards very, comfortable with gaming per se. Might not be that comfortable. So how did you work with that geography?
First of all, we were working for an NGO. So this
Okay.
NGO was our client. And an
Okay.
NGO, that's an NGO which I think has been trying to understand the whole contour around
Right.
girl trafficking for decades.
Yes.
That's what they heard of us and our approach to things. So we went into the towns, and also initially we were testing the hypotheses, and this one's also in Warangal in Andhra Pradesh, because that's also another really affected area across there. And the initial strategy of trying to look at this particular problem, a lot of people said it's maybe the father is actually someone who's not responsible enough. And a whole lot of blame was on to them as to why you are actually sending your children to town. But when we went deep into the problem, what we realized is the people, let's call it the bad people who are really creating this particular problem, are extremely smart. Extremely smart. They're well embedded into that village. They're keeping a close tab on, as soon as a girl is born in a family,
Wow.
they already have kept a tab on that particular family.
Wow.
And also they're keeping a tab on that family's financial and other problems around there. So assume, there is a death, or the bread earning member, the father's died, immediately they know that family is going to be in problems. Or maybe there was some other issue and they know there's a financial problem.
So they're looking out for financial instability in the family.
Yes, there is a financial instability, and that is, and also, yes, exactly. It'll be a financial problem to begin with, but that gives them an opportunity to say, oh, I know your daughter is 10, 11, but I can get her a job.
So they lure with jobs.
Yes. Job in town is actually the lure they actually talk about.
Okay.
Now, they also create a feeling of scarcity out there by saying, don't tell anyone about it, because that family, they were also asking me if I could take their child to town.
But I'm really curious. How come the information does not travel between these families? If 78%.
That's different level. This is the first level where as soon as you're sending your child, you're making sure that you sort of don't really discuss this with others. That's one.
But you are going to tell people that she's going for better employment.
Yeah, that's another very smart is not the right word, but smart. What they do is assume 4 girls are going from the village. They take 4 girls to to town. Actually, they give a job to at least one of them. Actual job. Okay, or maybe even 2. they give a job, but they've spotted two of them, and those two girls are actually taken to obviously the flush rate. Now, obviously, those girls can't come back, and what do they say? See, the other two girls who went, they have come back. I think the other two have befriended some and they got into bad company and they're gone. So these two girls, they bring back to the village, and that's a proof that I'm doing my job perfectly. The other girls have gone away. That's their problem.
So would they frame it as these people found somebody and
Exactly.
they are, they have run off?
They found someone. Even as they were going on the train, I think I knew it. They were sitting and chatting.
So out of 4, 1 will be given a job, 2 will be brought back, and 1 will be trafficked.
No, we assume the number doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm
but
like,
the point is, they will traffic them, but they will also get back the others as normal jobs, and they will come back to the village. Now, those trafficked, very few of them sort of live to come back and tell the story, because they have 10, 15 customers per day. By about 15, 18. Then most of these girls trafficked are 11, 12.
wow.
Yeah, by 15, 16, they die. Yeah, they die. They don't live beyond that because too many problems. Obviously, all sort of problems they will have. But assume some of them come back. They'll never speak about what happened to them. They'll never speak because that's a whole... so that silence is coming from the girls themselves. And
so you create a culture of shame and silence.
There's a total silence about
Wow.
what is really happening out
So
there.
what did ethnoLab do, and who did you target to do this research?
No, we spoke to the fathers, we spoke to the mothers, and to really
whose kids were actually trafficked?
No. It's a
general.
potential they have children of that particular age. The traffic we don't even know. But we also did find some of them have sent their children to town. Now, we don't know which category they really belong to. We wouldn't know that. We didn't get into that detail.
So the people who were actually trafficking, were you able? Obviously, you will not be able to talk to them, but the community you talk to them.
Yeah, the community. And see, this NGO anyway has been doing a lot of work within that. So we also had a lot of inputs coming in from the NGO and all the things are. But what we were more keen from an ethnoLab, what are the factors that are really leading to it? So initially people used to say, this poverty. We said poverty exists in a lot of other villages and other states in this country.
So why Lakshmi
Exactly.
Kantapur?
Now that is where we found that this is a place where there was a total silence, and there was about this whole migration to the city. And our predominant solution also was that. We said, let's open up. So before the child goes in, we said there is a helpline that you can call up and then find out. And, where is that job? Is there this one there?
How did that work?
It worked very well. And I think the NGO said, and if you look at, it is called My Life Foundation. The My Life Foundation calls that an extremely interesting solution. Because the moment opening up happened, the people in the village also realized those guys who were the bad elements, they knew.
So did it come down? That 70?
It did come.
Do you remember how?
I wouldn't know. The numbers are not.
Okay.
They haven't
But it did work.
Yeah.
I mean, this way of working, gamified.
Opening up this one, the insights they gave. So instead of now blaming the fathers, we actually said it's a problem with the information flow. Let's create a smooth information flow about the migration to the city, the dangers and others. So the moment such things happen, that information is sort of like a, sunlight falling into a dark room.
Beautiful. Such beautiful work. Which also brings me to the question of loan defaulters, because we're talking about poverty. And you talked about what you learned about loan defaulters. Why do people default on loans? And you used ethnoLab for it. So how did you go about, what did you capture?
Again, here getting the respondents was a huge problem.
I can imagine.
Because the bank is one of the leading private sector banks in this country. They had a very big problem with a lot of people taking loans and not paying. And if you're not paid the last 6 months, monthly this one, you're clearly a defaulter. And so obviously the bank is trying their best. They send their people, they do that, write phone calls. So even when we were trying to speak to these people, it was impossible for us to get through. But somehow we got through to this particular people.
Who have already defaulted.
They're defaulted.
They have defaulted.
They're not.
Yes.
So we got the list from the bank itself.
Got it.
But we also did one more thing. As we wanted to listen in to the existing relationship between the bank and the defaulters.
Okay. How did you do that?
So we did that because we got into the call centers.
Okay.
So we wanted to speak to the people who are handling this particular section.
These calls.
And we started listening into the conversations.
Beautiful.
And we realized
Yes.
it is about somehow I got through, I couldn't get through, but I somehow got his wife's number. Through the wife's number, I called. Then I got through. Once you get through, it's a barrage of, what do you think? I can't get through to you. It was like clearly saying he is a chore. I have come after you. As a policeman, I have come after you. I've caught you.
So the person who is making these calls,
he is into that mode of
Mahajan.
so angry because
Yes.
he's also been trying. Now that I got it, it's like a policeman catching the thief sort of a feeling out there.
Yeah.
So much so we found that, he also knows that after some time, obviously, that person is saying something and all that. He's so angry and he knows his call is being recorded. He stops that particular call, takes his mobile phone, calls up that number, and then still continues to shout at
But they did it in front of you?
Yes. I think they didn't know it. They're in that mood of it. They did that. But that gave us a tremendous understanding of the existing relationship between the bank and the loan defaulters. It's extremely bad. They're seen as people who are really bad and we need to go after them.
Yeah.
But we got them into ethnoLab. We generally really went deep into their...
I mean, people who were making these calls, you got them?
No. They're not them. That is up to the bank to change, and we will... But we were interested in the
people who were defaulting.
People who were defaulting. And we started getting deeper into. And what we heard is a very different story.
Okay.
They said, sir, I want to pay back.
Yeah.
But sir, I took the loan thinking I'll start a business. But then suddenly my child fell ill. A lot of money had to go in there. Then I started the business. And there was a,
So mishaps, basically.
Yes. So what we finally told, that one single insight we told the bank is almost 98%
want to give it back.
Yes, they want payback. But they can't pay back because of problems. But what we said is give them a bit more leeway and they're willing to pay back. So, but then the obvious question is why they're not picking up the calls? And all of them...
They're misbehaving. That's why they're not taking it.
One is that, they felt insulted. But more than that, they felt, sir, every time I speak to a call center person, I feel I've lost again, sir. That feeling of, having, I'm a loser just gets reinforced, sir. I didn't want that, sir. That's why. Otherwise, I would have told them. And what was our solution? We said, let's create non-voice, non-human interfaces.
So, do you think, which is the second question, would voice AI kind of interventions work there?
In that case, of course. And I think it's a good, at that time, AI and chatbots were not there. But today, I'll say a lot of these sort of problematic areas, an AI chatbot would actually be an ideal solution to do that. Because there are cases where we are uncomfortable speaking to a human, even if that human is a faceless person on the other side.
Which is an interesting question because I think the RBI has regulations and it says that you should declare that this is AI, right? And if you declare that it is AI, so the industry might think it is, people might disconnect the call. Based on the discussion that we are just having, I'm thinking that people might actually be happier talking there because it is AI and it's not a human being who is judging you. Am I right?
I think yes and no. Because there are certain cases where it's good to know it's an AI. And then I'll be much more open and I'll
Like in this case.
Like in this case. There are certain other cases. It's good to know that it is not an AI. Because, for example, I know there are certain people, AI, chatbot, cleared their throat. And can you hear me? That conversation is added. If I'm right, the government RBI said, please don't do it because you're not supposed to act like a human. But in this case, what it does is that it actually makes the person on the other side feel that as I'm speaking to a human. So I think we need to take case by case and realize that where is that it should be.
So Biju, I'm really interested in understanding whether the people who make public policies, I mean, they make the laws, they say do this, don't do that. Are they open to the kind of insights that are coming from new techniques like those that you are using?
Yes, and my answer would be a big yes, because the first time, maybe one of our biggest supporters was Indian Railways, because our
Yes.
most famous of our work was the work we did on trespassing deaths in the same railways.
Death in unmanned,
Exactly.
I mean, railway
The
tracks,
railway
right?
tracks in Mumbai, because
Right.
16 people die every day in Mumbai on an average.
There are
Getting
also 6 people die every day out of the overcrowding. Can something be done
Yes,
about that?
some which I think a lot of has been done, because I
Okay.
think now
But you worked on the unmanned traffic.
which is basically people trespassing across railway
Okay.
tracks,
Yeah.
because
Tell us about that.
no, because in that's why I said the 16 people who die in Mumbai
Every day.
every day is because east west. That's how Mumbai is sort of divided by the railway line. So my house is here, my school is on the other side. My house is here, my shop is on the other side.
Right.
Millions of people in Mumbai have to cross the railway tracks to actually go to the other side to
And
do
people
their.
have no time and therefore they run
Yeah.
through. And
Because
yeah.
the nearest footover bridge would be about a kilometer away.
Which
So
is impossible. I mean, I don't have time to do.
yeah, they're not going to go all the way. They just cut across.
Right.
But as they cut across, as I said, 16 people are dying. And
Every day.
every day.
Yeah.
And that's the single largest cause of unnatural death in Mumbai city.
Wow.
And so Railway asked us and said, can you do something about this? Obviously, initially what Railway asked us was, can you get people not to trespass? But as soon as I went to the places, we realized people are doing it as part of their daily routine. So you can't.
You can't change it.
All that we told them is, we can now make them cautious. We can reduce the number of deaths that happen because of the trespassing one. But when we went to the spots where most of these accidents were happening, I stood at that particular accident spot and said, how can someone get hit by a train here? Because I can see a train coming in from both directions almost from a kilometer away. That's where we went deeper into the problem. And we came across this work by Professor Lebowitz from Penn University. And he had figured out that our brain has a deficiency. Because evolutionarily, our brain has not seen large objects move fast. Elephants, giraffes never moved fast. We started seeing large objects move fast in the last 150 years.
So it's an assessment issue.
Exactly.
You cannot assess when you see the train, you cannot assess that it's going to come to you so fast. You think you can make it, but you cannot.
Yeah. Whereas on the road, we are able to do that because it's a motorcycle, it's a car, it's a small object, I'm able to do that.
With large objects, it's a problem.
And also what happened was, in roads, there are these poles, trees, they all act as reference points, which also gives me a good judgment of the speed. When the train is empty or it's almost there's no reference point that gives me that. So we got that problem. Okay. Now, what could we have done? As I said earlier, if we believed in the consciousness or the power of consciousness, I would have done what the automotive engineers have done. What they have done, on the rearview mirror, they've written, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
Yeah.
Now, I could have put up boards according to that by
But
saying
people are not reading it.
one is they read. Even if they read, that doesn't make any sense. Has it ever?
So brain is not.
Yeah. So if I assume based on it, I could have put up boards where it says trains are faster than what you think, so be careful. It's a fundamental problem with the brain. It's not with the consciousness. By providing that conscious information, you're not.
Which means evolutionary biology plays a role.
It is.
Yes.
It is what drives. This algorithm of the brain has been written over the last 680 million years.
Absolutely.
The more we understand that algorithm,
absolutely,
better will be the solutions we create.
True.
So how did we?
Yes. How did you go about it?
So we went deeper and said, okay, if I had to get the people to judge the speed, what should I do? Now we know brain always, for them to judge the speed, they need a reference point. That's why on a flight, we can't judge the speed because there are no reference points. So we said, let's provide a reference point. So the train is coming in from there, the direction is constant, the place where we trespass is also constant. So we said, to give a reference point, what we did was, few sleepers were left empty. The next 5 sleepers were painted in yellow paint. Next 15 were left empty. The next 5 were again painted in yellow color. So we had blobs of such 4 to 5 yellow painted blobs of such sleepers. When the train comes from there, the speed at which these yellow blobs disappear becomes a reference for these people at a non-conscious level.
Fantastic.
So For example, in Vadala, that's an area we had incorporated. So we asked those people, why did you stand? No, sir, the train is coming in very fast. Okay. What those yellow lines are for? Painted sleeper. I don't know, sir. I think that's for the motormen, because where we normally trespass or cross is where in the roads they have white lines. They didn't know.
Yeah,
Those
but it
yellow
worked.
yeah.
So here, so in the first case, you used ethnoLab,
Yeah.
which is like a simulated gamified situation. In this case, it was observation.
Yes, because we didn't have to. Because
Right.
here, the context, we have ability to stand in the context and understand.
Right.
And in the
Right.
railways, I have spent hundreds of hours on the railway tracks of Mumbai.
So there is no, I mean, there is no way you can, certain cases, traditional methodology works fine. You
Yeah.
just have to know which method will work.
Now, when you say traditional methodology, you have to be careful, because ethnography was pure observations. But today, when we go into observations around there, we observe a lot of this neuroscientific perspective to it.
So tell me about that.
For example, even in the railways, we also said, okay, the horn was there. Okay, in ethnography, someone would have said horn is there. We also figured out, horn does play a role, but we said, can it play a bit more significant role out from there? That's where we came across a work by this person from Stanford Medical School. He had said that instead of our brain listens to a sound intently, not when the sound is very loud, but when there's a gap between two sounds. So we told the railways, instead of your please make it give a gap, make it staccato horn. Actually, that's a circular that has gone across the country. Now, that's a neuroscientific approach. So
Did it help?
It is. Obviously, in here, there were 3 solutions that we done here when we implemented. I think there's a 75% reduction in.
Wow.
It's a Philip Kotler's book. Mr. Kotler has.
I mean, his recent book, it was a case study.
The 6th edition of his book
Had a case study
is called
in it.
Vadala Case Study.
Right.
So it's in public policy now. This is regarded as one of the most significant case studies on how do we use understanding of the working of the brain to understand the problem and also to develop extremely effective interventions.
So, Biju, this takes me back a little bit to understand what you have spoken about in your book as Exformation. What is that Exformation?
Again, it's got to do with the brain.
Okay.
Because with LLMs and AI coming in, the trend is let's provide as much information as possible. And so, for example, okay, I want which is the good toothpaste to buy. And then LLM gives you 1.5 page, write up around. Who's going to read it? By the way, toothpaste is something I've been buying for the last 25 years. Okay, one to this brand or this brand. And if you actually observe the decision making of a toothpaste, I think people look at it and take this one from the shelf within about 2 seconds time or 3 seconds. Why do you need 1.5 page information? Because LLM can provide it. I think that's a wrong understanding. People again haven't understood the brain. The brain is the most energy optimizing machine in the world. The brain works buying toothpaste, running around, all of it at 20 watts. So the brain does not...
20 watts?
Yeah. Brain is working at just 20 watts. Whereas all the supercomputers which are trying to be taking on humans, are using about 200,000 watts. So it's about 50,000 times more energy consumption is what those supercomputers...
So we are much, much more intelligent than any artificial intelligence.
Energy consuming, far less carbon
Far
footprint
less.
as compared to it.
Yes.
And one facet of that low energy consumption is I need information much, much lesser.
Lesser information.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Exformation is nothing but all this information that you need. Just funneling it to just what does I require for me to take that
So
decision.
how does a person who is trying to influence somebody, persuade somebody, and I'll give you a couple of examples where I would like to hear your advice. Like how does at that juncture, how does one take a decision? And a public policy maker, if they know about it, it will help them. For example, like talking about trains, I know that every day 6 to 10 people die in Mumbai every day because of the overcrowding, right? And people are trying to get off. Actually, a friend of mine, her colleague died in such a thing because who will get off from the train first? And this person stabbed the other person. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that people can die because of that, but it is because of the overcrowding. And you are thinking, oh, the train will go away, I will miss my whatever, right? Like that. So, if it is only a little bit of information, so in this context, how could exformation work? Or is it something else that would work to discourage people from jumping or fighting with each other,
No,
say
any
overcrowding?
situation. That's one of the things my book also speaks about, which is with these 30-second commercials and LLMs and all that. We tend to think human decision making is something. All decisions are something I take a long time to do. But if you really look closer at the brain, you realize we take about 35,000 decisions in a day, which means the average duration of a human decision is only 2 seconds. And so the information, even Gary Cale, I think he's done his work among firefighters. And I think he has figured out that 78% of the decision that a firefighter takes, and it's one of the most uncertain situations, what fire, what is
Yes,
causing it,
totally.
it's taken less than 60 seconds. So I think the old that belief,
Paradigm.
that paradigm that we need a lot of information and I have lots of time to take a decision is fundamentally flawed. That is why exformation comes in. Now, where is the exformation's biggest foundation? Is basically saying first you need to find out what all the existing knowledge that people already have. You don't have to provide all that. So understanding the information that's already there, it's actually important. The other very important facet is also that human brain is not an input-output machine. It's actually an anticipating machine. And where does the anticipation comes from? Years of experience that you and I have about life and all around life is stored in our brain. And if you have a good understanding of it, all you need is how can I trigger it? And the trigger is like a little spark that just takes the electricity all around your brain. So understanding the spark that trigger is enough.
So in this case, like overcrowding of trains and 6 to 10 people dying every day because of overcrowding, what could be possibly some information?
Honestly, since I haven't studied a problem, I won't be able to give
So
an
if one
answer.
had to study the problem, how would you go about it?
No, I'll definitely be standing and
In the
traveling
train
in the train,
and seeing
understanding
what is
what
happening.
is happening there, what is the movements.
So
or
would a
the people.
gamified situation work there, or is
We,
it
do,
a
we don't need a gamified situation
don't
because
need
you
it.
can live the situation
You
out.
can live the situation and then find out what is that 2 second thing that people are deciding whether I jump out, don't jump out. It's a problem of
Or are there solutions that you can bring in so
Right.
that you get the people to move? Is the announcements of the stations in advance, or people who are standing in the? It could be any of them, but I would definitely spend few days and few weeks
trying to
living
get
the
there.
problem, living the
living
problem.
in the problem.
Because I have crossed the railway tracks hundreds of times while trying to understand the trespassing problem.
Again, going back to ethnography, I mean, pure ethnography is where you go back to, but keep in mind the science and cognitive neuroscience behind such understanding, right? That
It is
might
when
be
the
helping.
hypothesis that pure ethnography is just observing. That means everything is an observation for you. No. We first look at that behavior, look at what from a neuroscience point of view, and I go specifically into that hypothesis that I want to look closely into.
Right.
And that's what's the difference, where you actually combine the traditional, what we call ethnography, with cognitive neuroscience.
Got it. So this book is about microstimuli and it is about the new science of persuasion. That is what the book is about, right? So what is microstimuli? Like we have talked about exformation, little information which helps you take a decision. What is microstimuli?
It basically says, human decisions are being taken in seconds, if not milliseconds, more so on the smartphone. Because all the marketing, communication, or persuasion strategies have been built around the belief that the television is the lead medium. The television, the context, that means duration, which is how much time that channel, that screen is in front of you. It's about 5 to 21 minutes. 90 percentile of the time the screen was there at least for 5 minutes. So a 30-second commercial fitted in. But television is no more the lead medium. The lead medium is
the mobile.
the mobile. Now, the mobile phone, my team has done that study, And what we found is the context duration is only 5 to 10 seconds. That means 90 percentile of the time, the duration, within 5 seconds, I move to another context. Now, when the context duration itself is only 5 seconds, how can you even have a 5-second commercial out there?
So what will work?
Which is a way your persuasion stimuli should be something that works in milliseconds.
And give us an example of that.
Now, which is the yellow line that we created on the railway tracks.
Right.
You look at it, people look and they stand back. Within milliseconds, they've decided. We've done a similar micro-stimuli for road safety. We have reduced road accidents across 15 highways in this country by up to 69%, which is also mentioned in this book. Now, what is the interaction? It's some lines are drawn again on the road, a different type of lines are drawn. And I think people automatically, their leg moves from the accelerator to the brake, and there's a reduction in the speed, and accidents are come down by 69%. So people don't have to read, understand, and take a lot of information. No, in milliseconds, their behavior is actually changed. And so there are various examples of microstimuli that I've done. By the way, a lot of people says, what can I be said in milliseconds? Is there any other examples? And I tell them, look at the cinema poster.
Yes, totally.
Look at, for example, the poster of Jaws. You look at it.
You immediately understand.
That 2-hour, 24-minute film is compressed into one.
So a photography can do so much.
Yes.
Right?
And all our signage, we were the first to use photographs in public signages. We said no words, nothing is required. I think our road signages, even the signages we use at the trespassing place, was photograph of a person who's about to be hit by a train. It's very, very powerful.
In that context, I want to really understand something. Recently my students did a project in which they were trying to understand fraud. I mean, a family lives in our outhouse in my Calcutta's parental home. And this guy got a call from somebody saying, what is your mother's name? And he did not understand. He gave away the mother's name. Okay. Immediately 1 lakh rupees went away from his account. And then I asked my students to do a project to understand fraud. And they saw that now there are these new age frauds where AI related frauds, and even very educated people don't understand that it is not your granddaughter calling because they show videos and things like that, and you cannot make out. So in such cases, do you think something like a microstimuli could work in stopping banking frauds? And these are not simple password frauds. They're not asking you for passwords. They're doing something else, and you give away some information like your mother's name, and all your life savings are gone.
I have done a detailed analysis of the digital arrests that happened. It's not as simple as what we gave away, not just the mother's name, we give away actually our bank details, all of it we give away. But we have to look through the beginning of it to the end. And I've written a detailed LinkedIn post on that. And and also I've suggested the solutions, how you can get away from it. And one of the things I've said is, if you can get away at the beginning, you have the best chance of getting away. But after that, I think they're playing on some of the biggest human vulnerabilities. And even the most educated, and I've seen even, vice president of a multinational company, she's gotten, because finally then it came to, was the safety of her son.
Yes.
Now, once it comes to your safety of your child,
you can't do
you will give up everything. But why did you reach that? I think that is where first you will have a situation where it's a random call. And they'll ask you. And what do? They say, is it, and you have I'm Paromita. They didn't ask you is Paromita. Oh, okay, Paromita. And what they do is they use silence extremely well for you to fill it up.
Wow.
And you're filling it up. You're filling it up.
They're very smart people.
They're extremely smart people. So,
but to counter it, what can be done? Can an intervention?
The first thing if you want to call it a microstimuli, I would say, don't pick up phone numbers from any stranger. If that number is not, then don't.
But these are couriers also call you the whole time. I mean, Amazon is calling you the
Some
whole
of them you will have to give away. But at least now the telecom companies are now become much more smarter about it. They're trying to do that. But at least at the next level, one of the things I've often said is, they make sure that you don't share the information with anyone. The moment they say, and what they do, the big peak point of it is they suddenly say there is a drug in your career that has come
Oh,
into.
yeah, yeah.
That's the time where you first really
Yeah.
lose this
Yeah.
from there. Now, I'd cut the line there. If anyone tells you that you've done something fraud or something there, cut the line there and speak to someone immediately that I got a phone call saying that there's a drug in my career or there is a fraud with in my bank account. Speak to someone. If you can speak to someone and get someone involved, that person will speak think bit more rationally to you at that point of time. So assume you pick up the phone call. The time where you lose the plot is when they throw a big sort of
Emotional. This
no,
thing.
they put you in on the back foot by saying that there is a problem with you. Now suddenly you say, and I have to send then they'll send the SBI, CBI, they'll send the police, army, or no, and they build up the case across there. But at least at that stage when they throw this one at you, if you can stop it, I think you sort of will be saved. And one of the best things you can do is to speak to someone and say, hey, I got a phone call from some person.
So I'll go back now a little bit and ask you, when you were 17 and you were about to decide what do you study at that time? If today's Biju could have given an advice to 17-year-old Biju, knowing all the information and knowledge and wisdom that you have, what would you have told 17-year-old Biju?
17-year-old Biju was told do engineering.
Yes.
And I did that. But and I went to one of the good engineering colleges. But by 18, I knew the engineering was not meant for me.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Those days, the word MBA.
But a lot of people who are 17, 18 has the pressure that you faced. So how does one, I mean, all the persuasion that we know about and how to persuade your parents not to force you to go to engineering?
Even 17, 18, it'll be very difficult for people to realize what they want to do in life. So my advice to anyone listening to me would be, at least be sure, 17, 18, up to your graduation, at least what you don't want to do. And don't do what you don't want to do and what you're not comfortable with. Because a lot of kids are doing things today because of scope. Oh, there's a scope now. AI has got a lot of scope. And you have no interest in technology. Don't do it. So don't do things that you're not comfortable with and you don't like. But you might like or you don't really, know. But that at least when your graduation is over, you'll have a bit more clarity.
Right.
But in your post-graduation,
Right.
be a bit more specific about and take up a subject that you like.
There are a lot of people, I mean, we did some study trying to understand when people are forced into programs or, like they're doing this coaching, I know even a quota kind of coaching. And my students we were talking about photography and how important it is. So they have shown us photography. I was trying to do a ZMAT, not really, but art space method and visual method. And they found students are giving prison cells with things written. It almost looks like a concentration camp, like when we look at those images. So how does one, if one has to do our intervention, trying to tell parents, I mean, don't do it. If one has to use Micro-Stimuli or ethnoLab, how do we try to understand parents' ideas or kids' ideas to address this kind of a problem?
Now, first of all, here the decision maker is almost always the parents.
Yes.
And in India, we have to really work with them
Yes.
to actually
So
change
much.
Yeah.
So vital, yes.
And again, as we said, it's not a simple problem. It's a very complex problem. And one of the things I do with any complex problems are break it down into singular human behavior problems. And there will be at least 10 or 12 such behaviors we'll have to change of the parents, of the school system, of the students, all of them. And each of them will have to attack it
separately.
Separately.
But the industry is a huge industry. I mean, the coaching industry, it's difficult to make inroads there.
That is why we'll have to come back to where the beginning of the problem is. That's all happening in our houses with our parents, and a lot of things have to change. And if we had to use, because your book is also on science of persuasion. Yeah. So if one has to use persuasion, do you think microstimuli or things like that might work? It will work, provided you are breaking that down into singular behaviors. Because microstimuli works for one behavior and dealt with it at the
Okay.
point of action.
For complex wicked problems, it will
No, you can, but you'll have to break it down
break
into
it down to.
Not that all of them are only microstimuli. No, at times structural changes will have to happen. At times legislations will have to come in. So
Right.
I'm not saying that microstimuli is the solution for everything and everything.
So let me give you another situation. There is a particular genetic condition which will lead to death because there is no medicine yet. But unless one invests in research of that kind, and therefore people who have that condition get themselves tested and participate in research study, there can also be no medicine. So it's a chicken and egg problem. So in such cases, do you think something like microstimuli would work?
It's not easy because we're dealing with, again, a huge problem with the brain because we're trying to get people to participate in a research or in an activity for which there are no immediate rewards.
And there might be a stigma as well.
Could be a stigma as well. But my bigger issue would be there's no immediate reward.
Yes.
If there's no immediate reward for an activity that I do, the brain does not do it.
Right.
Whether it's research or it's getting up in the morning and going for a walk, could be any of them. They all fall under that particular problem. But we have done a project, and I think you can see that in our book, where we got people to take steps, more steps every day. Again, there is a problem. We spend time to look at it. How do we get more people to respond to researchers and other things to happen? Yes, we should be able to find a way to persuade them to do it.
Address things like
because we
that.
did get people of that Middle East country to take far more steps than what they were. They were taking about 700 steps per day. They have moved to close to 4,000 steps in a day. So it is
possible, but one has to understand So for that, one needs to read the book and understand properly
Yes.
what the system is. But is it possible to teach in a classroom?
It is. I think it is possible to teach. I've been teaching this in various business schools around the world. And this book itself is actually a way to make sure that this knowledge get disseminated to a much larger set of people. So I hope this is the beginning.
This is wonderful, and I have read the book, and like I said, it was like Rebecca to me. I could not put it down. I highly recommend it to my audience, and I will, of course, tag the book below and the LinkedIn article that you also talked about, so that people can read this book and learn about how we can also use it in our daily lives and to solve the problems that we have around, so that we have a world which is about doing good. Thank you, Biju, so much for coming here, spending time with me, and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paromita. Thank you.